Role.
Um, how does the NDP plan to allocate land for housing, schools, hospitals, and more jobs for since we're in a housing crisis?
Yeah, great question. So you're in Langley, and one of the big challenge areas that we have in the province is the Lower Mainland. Because if you look out window, you see the mountains and the ocean, and then we have the agricultural land reserve, where we've made the decision to preserve land for farming, for food security, to make sure we have enough food to eat. And so between those various restrictions, there's huge demand for land, for jobs for industrial land, for land for housing, and parks and other kinds of amenities that people really like. And so the division of that land is a huge issue and a provincial issue, when normally it would only be a municipal issue. And so for housing, for example, we're trying to encourage municipalities to use the land that we have more efficiently, to make it easier for people to build a duplex or a townhouse, to have more homes on a single family lot without having to go through a full rezoning, which can take a really long time and drive up the cost. And so we passed some laws about that to make that easier. And on industrial land, we have a bunch of sites that used to be used for industrial land, but now they're polluted or they're otherwise unusable. So how do we bring that land back and use those brownfield sites for industrial land? And on the agricultural land reserve, we're working with farmers and others to allow more food processing to take place on agricultural land, which will take some pressure off industrial land, because the food processing, whether it's making a salad or yogurt or jams or whatever out of BC products, can actually happen within the ALR, and the farmers can have some control over that and create more jobs out of our agricultural sector. So it's complicated, but it's a really important question. So we have a role in the province, and so do the cities. Interesting question. Good start.
What's next for BC if Alberta does separate?
Well, the best news will be the drive to Toronto will be much shorter. That's my classic separation joke. I'm sorry, dad joke. So the discussion about separation in Alberta, in my opinion, is not one that's grounded in what the vast majority of Albertans or Canadians want. So I would say that the risk is very low. But we shouldn't treat the risk as zero. I think people thought the risk of Brexit was very low, and then a referendum, and the UK voted to leave the European Union. And I think that no one really thought Quebec would vote to leave Canada, and then they had a referendum, and it was very close, and it was just at the last minute. I think that many voters decided to stay within Canada. So it's not something you want to mess around with, and that's why certainly I've shared my opinion with the Alberta Premier and publicly, that I think that it's a huge mistake to engage with the fringe minority that is arguing that this is a good idea in Alberta, that instead we should be focused on working together as a country. If Alberta did separate, they would be poorer, the country as a whole would be poorer, and nobody would be better off. And so because of the disadvantage that it would bring to everybody, I think that our energy is much better spent on finding ways to work together and find common points of agreement, which is what we're trying to do with Alberta here in BC.
How does the NDP plan to build affordable homes since the cost of everything has gone up in the past 5 years since COVID?
Yeah, great question. So I think for a lot of young people, they wonder, how am I ever going to be able to afford a place to live? How am I going to be able to start my life and live here in British Columbia? And I think that is actually an existential question for the province. Like, if young people can't see a future for themselves in your province, then I'm not sure that any other issue really matters. And so it's been a big focus of our governments. We talked already about how we can build more homes faster on the land that we have to bring down the cost of land. We have a program called the Affordable Homeowner Initiative. So one of the things that, if your parents own their home and they've benefited from the rise in real estate values, a lot of parents are lending money to their kids for a down payment, so they can have a down payment and buy a place to live. But what do you do if you're not in that situation? Your parents don't own a home, they're not in a position to be able to lend you a down payment. Does that mean that you're never going to be able to own your own place in British Columbia? And so under the Affordable Homeowner Initiative, the down payment is actually split between the government that owns a small portion of the debt on your house, and you. So it's a smaller down payment that's required, and it's more realistic. People can actually save for it while they're renting. We have one project where we're doing this in Vancouver. It's a pilot project, and it's a very exciting model, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to expand it right across the province. We're doing it in the most expensive neighborhood, in the most expensive city in the province, like one of the most expensive cities in the world to buy housing in. And we've been able to bring down the cost of housing by almost 40%. And so that's really significant for someone that's looking to find a place to live. And as we get outside of Vancouver, it makes it even more reasonable in different parts of the province where housing is a little bit more affordable. So we're having to do innovative projects like that, and we have a federal government that's committed now to work with us on affordable housing, and we're hoping to be able to work with them on that too. The other piece is we're using public land to build housing. One of the big costs of housing is the land. And so if we have public land and we build on that land and we're able to remove the cost of the land from the cost of housing for people, we're able to make housing more affordable. But it's a big focus for us, and we're going to have a lot more to say about that in the fall as we move forward, because it's a major issue, especially for young people in the province.
How does the NDP plan for growth in BC when Trump is threatening tariffs here, there, and
Yeah, so, one of the things that people expect of government is we pay for the cost of schools and teachers and roads and hospitals and good public services. There's two ways to get more money for those things. One is to increase taxes on people, and the other is to grow the economy so that people are earning more money, they're able to pay more, and they will pay more in taxes. And there's revenue from the growth in the economy through resources, development, and royalties that we get on that and that sort of thing. So between those two, raising taxes and growing the economy, we want to grow the economy. But your question is like, how do you grow the economy when our biggest trading partner is basically at economic war with us, trying to shut down the forest sector, putting tariffs on things that are built here in British Columbia that are getting shipped to the United States. And it is the question for our economy right now, nationally. And so for us, it's about a couple of things. One is about recognizing that here in BC, we're incredibly wealthy. We have resources that'll support British Columbians for generations. And so how do we ensure that we're developing those resources, that we're selling them to make money for our province, that we're able to provide services? And so we're fast tracking things like mines, clean energy in the province, and those resources will help us pay for what we need to do. The other thing is we need to not be as dependent on the United States. So we're getting rid of rules that restrict our ability to sell things to other provinces. It's illegal to sell BC wine directly into Ontario, for example, if you can imagine. And so getting rid of those rules so that we can sell across Canada like we're one economy nationally, and also build our relationships with countries like Korea and Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, to sell more, because our port, which is right over there, is the gateway to Asia, to 2/3 of the world's population. And so we'll never replace the US. They're close, they're huge, they provide a lot of prosperity for Canada, and vice versa. We provide a lot of prosperity and cheap products for the United States. But what we can do is help offset some of that harm that Trump is doing by selling to other countries.
Would the NDP plan for the tax cuts for lower income families, or lower the tax rate for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the recent changes we made was to get rid of the carbon tax. This was a tax that, while it applied equally to everybody, had a disproportionate impact on lower middle income people in the province. The carbon tax was offset with other tax reductions, and so when we got rid of that, we didn't put the old taxes back in place, we just got rid of it entirely. It was a significant hit for the provincial treasury, about $2 billion. But at this point in time, we didn't feel that families were able to take any additional costs, and they needed that cost reduction. So that reduction in the carbon tax enabled us to be able to reduce costs for lots of families, not just directly in their fuel costs, but also in the costs of other products for small businesses and so on.
This has been very increasing in the U.S. with the topic of the state and the church should be together, do you think it should be separate or together?
Yeah, I think people bring their own faiths to politics. We have people of multiple different faiths in our legislature: Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Sikhism, and I think that every elected member draws on their faith if they have a faith, or some people are agnostic or atheist in the legislature. And so they draw on their background, they draw on their religious knowledge and beliefs in trying to make the best decisions they can for the province. I think that's important and welcome. We have a prayer or moment of reflection at the beginning of each legislative session, where sometimes people read poetry, sometimes they pray from their own faith tradition, from other people's faith traditions. It reflects the diversity of the province. I think the problem with the church and the state coming together is when people believe that their views, their religion should be imposed on everybody else in the province. I stand strongly opposed to that. I stand for the diversity and the welcoming of the province and the welcoming of different faith traditions. That's the strength of this province that we live in. That's one of the beautiful things about Canada. And so I say faith is welcome in government, but imposing your faith on other people by using government is wrong, and we shouldn't do it.
How did you get into politics?
Well, I got into politics because I was working in the downtown east side. It was a neighborhood right over there, and I was working with people that were either homeless or living in really squalid conditions. And we were advocating for the city of Vancouver to use a bylaw that they had to really improve the conditions of my clients. I was a lawyer who was helping them. And the city wouldn't use the bylaw that they had. It was called the Standards of Maintenance Bylaw. They could do repairs in the building and then bill it back to the property owner through the property tax system, and people's lives would really improve and the building would be better. But they wouldn't use the law. And I went so many times, and then finally I was like, well, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to run for city council. I'll help you do it. And I got a team together and ran for nomination with the new Civic Party in Vancouver. And would you believe it? I lost. I lost by 14 votes. But once you run once, people start calling you and they say, oh, would you like to run here? There are elections all the time, actually. Municipal, school board, provincial, federal. They need candidates all the time. So I started getting a lot of calls. Well, you ran and you did an okay job, even though you lost, and we'd like you to run here. And so finally someone called and made me an offer to run against Christy Clark in Vancouver Point Grey. She was the then leader of the BC Liberal Party and was just running for her first time. And she was going to be the new premier, and she was definitely going to win. Like, I didn't expect that I had a chance, but I wanted to debate her about the issues I cared about, so I ran against her and came very close and lost again. But on the second time, I beat her in 2013 and was elected to the legislature. But it really started about just trying to have government use the tools to improve the quality of life for people who are really struggling, and continues to be why I'm here.
How would one get into politics and get nominated for like a MLA riding or something like that?
Great question. So there's a couple ways. A lot of people like to get involved in politics through the party system, and so they choose a party that most closely matches with their political beliefs, and they volunteer in elections, and they join the local electoral committee for that riding, and they keep showing up, and they learn a lot about politics, and then they run for nomination. They get nominated. Other people, they're out working in the community. They run a small business, or they're involved in law enforcement, or they're an advocate on a particular issue, or there's something came up in their neighborhood that they really care about, and they organize their neighbors about it, and then they have no connection with a party, but then they run for nomination. They sign people up, and they run for nomination from outside the party, and they get nominated with the party. And so those are the two most common routes. And so for young people, I really encourage them to find out who their local MLA is and volunteer with the office. And if it's an MLA from a party that they really don't agree with, that they find the local representatives from the political party and they volunteer with that political party association. It's a great way to see what it's really like, what politics is really all about. It's not always what you see on the news. There's a lot of day-to-day work with neighbors and meeting people and knocking on doors. And it's a lot of fun and very interesting, so I encourage you to do that. Awesome. Well, thanks for the interview. And good luck with your project.
Can I get a picture with you?
Absolutely, yeah, and I'll see you in Victoria.